Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Wizard Weekly, where we bring you news and humor from around the Spiral, which has been pretty quiet this week with the exception of the new stun shield system KingsIsle's put into place to stop chain stunning in arenas. From now on, wizards stepping into the arena will receive 1 to 4 stun guards after being successfully stunned, depending on how many opponents they're facing. Deathhaven and Turkish Monkey were shaking things up in the arena this week, giving it their all for the 200th tournament. It was friend against friend as they stepped into the arena, exchanging small spells to gauge their opponent and saving their pips to unleash furious blows later on. Deathhaven rocked Turkish Monkey's world with an early quake that nearly buried his minion, but it managed to stand its ground with just a handful of hit points left. Monkey wasn't too happy about Deathhaven trying to shake and bake his minion, and quickly slapped Deathhaven clear out of the park with not 1, but 2 Ifrit attacks. Congratulations to Turkish Monkey, who will be moving on to the next round. If you're tired of hearing about the 200th tournament, the head of your class tournaments are going on right now, and boy, have the battles been awesome. There was an epic battle between Deathhaven and Master of Wraiths for the title of Head of the Death School, where Deathhaven came away with the A+. Many of the other school tournaments are drawing to a close, so keep your eye on that roster. Speaking of rosters, you're going to have to work hard to make the cut at Rebecca Roseblood's ninja training camp. Becca has transformed this deserted island paradise into a secret haven where only the most elite come to train their bodies and minds. Right on the shore, her Travelocity gnomes keep watch to repel invaders with lightning-fast kung fu moves and great travel prices. She keeps a small garden to feed her guests and trainees, who reside in the expedition camp she set up for them under the watchful eye of her pet firehound, Bailey. Hidden away behind a waterfall is her boardroom, where ninjas in training can study, and where Becca keeps a close eye on all the criminals from around the Spiral. It takes a lot to feed all those recruits, but Becca's Tiki Kitchen is more than capable. This room took her several months to find all the decor for, and she's very proud of it. One smoothie, please! Guarding the kitchen from the hallway is her pet, Buggy, a sweet little beetle she adopted from a friend. It becomes apparent he's not the only bug around as we enter the bookworm's paradise that is Becca's bedroom. Across the hall is her Marlebonian living room, where after a hard day of training you can sprawl out on a sofa and unwind. What's really special about Becca's training camp is that it's built into some ancient ruins that have a serene waterfall cascading down the ruined interior. Alright, she told me where the trigger was, but I forgot, so... Phew. Okay. After surviving her clever traps, you can enter into Becca's personal meditation room, where you can achieve clarity of mind and become one with the Spiral. Becca really put me through my paces, but being able to relax in her island home afterwards was well worth the pain, and that smoothie was awesome! This week's home and garden glitch isn't necessarily a glitch, it's just something cute I found that's rather helpful. If you're one of those gardeners that doesn't want to rush their plants along, that doesn't mind, not leaving things out, and you notice that some of your plants are pretty close to elder and you want to push them, here's how you do it. You take the things that they like the most, you place them close, like you normally would, then give them about 30 seconds. I like to run to my door and back because it's about 30 seconds. About. When you come back, well, or not. There we go. When you come back, your plants will have matured to elder and you can harvest them. This is great if you've just harvested them normally and you want to finish them off, or if you want to just plant something else. That brings us to Letters from the Spiral, which will be opening with a question many of our viewers have asked. Do you think KingsIsle will ever give wizards more pips? I'm not going to say it's inevitable, but unless KingsIsle finds some sly way of reducing the pip cost of spells in the far distant future, we'll probably see the addition of a pip or two. It's not going to be for a very long time though. As it stands right now, if you have all power pips, you technically have 14 pips that are good for your school, or your second if you have the amulet. Right now, I believe the most expensive spells we have are 8 pips. If KingsIsle keeps up with their release of one world a year, and if we assume that every world comes with another spell with a higher pip cost, it'll be another 6-ish years before we absolutely need that extra pip. Something else we may see in the future is an alternative like an Ultra Pip that's good for 3 pips towards your school, or maybe even the return of Eludicate in one form or another. We've got a while before we see what KingsIsle comes up with though, if they implement some advanced pip system or if they just give us an extra pip. Blood Princess is looking to the future as well, and she wonders, do you think that finding crafting reagents will ever get any easier as the game goes on? As the spiral expands, as new worlds are added, yes, it'll get easier and easier to find older reagents simply because there's more places to find them. There will always be rare reagents though, and as new reagents are introduced, they'll be harder to find in the beginning because KingsIsle wants crafting to remain something that a wizard can be proud of, and to maintain that sense of pride they're going to make it something that's a little more difficult, if only because you have to grind out 100 of this or kill a bajillion of that to get the materials you need to make what you want. If you're having a hard time finding what you're looking for, here's a few tips that worked for me. There's a ton of great guides on Wizard Central. Shameless plug. Excuse me. But yeah, there's a ton of great guides, and they have a fancy map here and there, and they have charts with all sorts of goodies throughout all sorts of realms, and the trick is to not follow them. Scroll down, read through the comments until you find the one that says, "This is a great map, but I farm them over here," because half the crafters on Wizard Central are looking at that same guide and they're headed to that same place, and you'll be competing with them for the resources there, and that's just going to be so much more long and frustrating than it needs to be. The thing is, most readers stop at the first post because it's got pretty graphics, it tells them what they need to know, and they want to get this over and done with. They aren't going to see the post from Mary Sue Bob on the 3rd page telling them that there's a great Black Lotus route on Floating Island. Another great tip is to farm in the morning. Loads of wizards farm from noon to night, and loads more wizards think they're clever and they farm in the middle of the night to avoid the day crew, and between the two groups of farmers, the reagent-rich areas are going to be wiped clean. If you farm around 8 in the morning, you're avoiding the day farmers because they haven't gotten out of bed yet, or they're still going through their morning routine, and the night farmers are just drooling masses of unconsciousness in their computer chairs. Though I'm pretty sure I just ensured I'll never see a Black Lotus between the hours of 8 and 10 in the morning again by telling you this. It's a pretty sound tactic. Or at least it was. Let's do the time warp again with a question from Twinkie Berries. What do you think KingsIsle will do in the future when gear makes wizards too powerful? That is a question I had to sit on for a while because it's a very good one, and I'm sorry for not getting to it when you asked last week. It's something I really wanted to think over completely. I honestly think we've passed that point already. If you take a look at the gear from Wintertusk and Waterworks, the stats on those things, they're phenomenal. Speaking from a life student standpoint, I saw the gear and about exploded with joy because I finally have attack power and critical strike rating, and the only sacrifice I had to make was going from 112% power pip chance to 105. At this point in the game, 1 out of every 4 of my healing spells is going critical, and then I can turn around and punch 4 people at once in the face with a turbocharged critical Yeti of Doom. While it's not game-breaking because everyone is an ungodly powerful pain machine, something will have to be done in the near future if KingsIsle wants the game to remain challenging, but not insane. They're putting this super gear out there so we'll want to farm for it and we'll stay in the game, and that's the way it should be. The thing is, they've given us this uber gear so we'll trade up, and we've surpassed the invisible marks that used to make our respective schools unique and challenging. It's anyone's guess what they decide to do with this, but I think we may be headed towards a level-dependent scaling system. It works in countless other MMOs, including Rift, Aeon, and World of Warcraft, and dare I say it'd be the perfect solution to their current problem. With a level-dependent scaling system, your stats would mean less and less the further you leveled. I'm gonna throw some invisible numbers at you here. Let's say it's level 56, you had a wand with 20 critical strike rating that gave you 6% critical strike. With a level-dependent scaling system, at level 60, that wand would only give you 4% critical strike. This system would encourage us to invest time and money into getting better gear, and at the same time it would stop us from becoming too incredibly powerful. You could argue that, it would confuse the younger wizards who aren't necessarily mathematicians, but it doesn't really get any more complicated than bigger numbers equals better gear. The reason KingsIsle is hesitating to put this system into play, I think, is because it would mean a total overhaul on their part. Gear would have to be rebalanced from level 1 to the stuff we're wearing now. They'd have to actually sit down and work out the system, then implement it, and then they'd have to deal with the tidal wave of hate mail from all the wizards who can no longer hit for 97,683,532 health points in one go. If they decided to go this route, and I really hope they do, they're in for a massive amount of work. And I personally wouldn't blame them for accidentally setting this memo on fire, but, it would be a very, very good solution to the problem they're having now, which is wizards that are too powerful. And now that I've talked your ear off, let's move on to our final question, one from Professor Winterblossom. Do you think it would be weird if we could stitch talons from one pet to another? Okay, so this is the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned stitching talents to pets. Poor Henry with a Lifeblade card stitched to his tush, and the mental image alone almost made me laugh my soda out my nose, so yeah, I do think stitching talents from one pet to another would be weird, as well as painful. Not only would you have some pets walking around looking like patchwork quilts, you'd also have eliminated the necessity to repeatedly hatch and train pets to get what you want. As awesome as this sounds, it's not really, because you're taking food out of KingsIsle's mouth, and they want you to buy energy elixirs, pet snacks, and gold to support your pet habit so they can afford to bring you awesome new things like the recent upgrades to their servers and the entire world of Wintertusk. So as super nifty as it sounds, this is one of those ideas that belongs in the bin of things that would make the game too easy. Alright, that wraps this episode up like a crack-a-mummy in a cotton candy machine. I hope everyone has a most excellent weekend, and don't forget to tune in next week for more news and humor from around the Spiral. Stand its ground with just a handful of, one, but 2 Ifrit attacks. Congratulations. I had to screw up at the end. Oh. Reside in the crew, and between the two groups, the Regent rich areas, so close, so close.